recording. So Dixon Place began as a literary salon in 1985 and continues that work today with the Guerrilla Lit Reading Series and other literary programs. The box office and bar usually cover much of Dixon Place's budget, but months of closure due to the pandemic mean that their programming is being sustained by donations. Please consider contributing, and the link should be popping up in the chat window shortly. And this evening, our virtual edition of the Guerrilla Lit Reading Series features Susan Buttenwieser, Tara Isabel Zambrano, and Lee Matthew Goldberg. And our first reader for the evening is Susan Buttenwieser. Susan is the author of We Were Lucky with the Rain. Her writing has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize and appeared in Epiphany, Atticus Review, Failbetter, and other publications. She contributes news features to Women's Media Center and has been awarded several fiction fellowships from the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. She also teaches creative writing in New York City public schools in high poverty neighborhoods with incarcerated women, older adults, and with youth in detention facilities. And the purchase link for her debut story collection, We Were Lucky with the Rain, will also be in the chat window. And please welcome Susan.
Thank you so much. I first wanted to thank Guerrilla Lit so much for having me. As we talked before, I've been reading with you guys for a really long time, and I really appreciate the over a decade, I think it's 13 years of support. This is my first book, and having support like from you guys is the kind of thing that has kept me going and made me feel like a writer before you know what I mean, like early on. And first of all, I also want to thank Four-Way Books. They're just an amazing publishing company, and everyone who works there is incredibly kind and nice. And also my good friend Jay Gardner for the photograph on the cover. I'm gonna read from one of the stories in the collection that's actually, there's 3 connected stories. And this is the last one. I think the only thing you really need to know, it's about a guy who's an underemployed comedy writer. And the sort of thread through of the 3 stories is he's been trying to get this job with on a big show, a TV show with a producer that he was introduced to by his much more successful comedy writer friend. Okay, so this is called Evidence. The double swinging doors flap behind you, announcing your presence as you come in out of the oppressive sunlight. The bar is afternoon empty. The few people on stools nod in your general direction. You order a shot of tequila and take your usual spot where the bar slopes around, right by the bags of chips, pretzels, and the bartender leaning against the bottles. You always come here by yourself, and while no one quite talks directly to you, you are not left out either. The bartender's brother is always here in the late afternoon with some other guys from his job, cleaning up crime scenes after the LAPD have taken all the evidence. You started coming pretty regularly on Mondays because they had good stories from the weekends, stories you told yourself you would use in a script someday. You are here even though it is Thursday, but it's been a bad day. After months of meetings and rewriting a spec script, the television producer finally told you that he's not going to hire you for his new show. Or rather, his assistant left a message on your cell phone early this morning, thanking you for your interest in the position, which has now been filled. You swallow the shot, order another one with the beer chaser, and then another. The bartender just looks at you and pours the tequila while moving a toothpick from side to side in his mouth. The place smells strangely comforting, a cross between your grandmother's home and an alley, ammonia, piss, and people who drink so much they sweat liquor. Christmas lights are up all year round, and a variety of beer signs hang on the walls. A few pictures of regulars are scotch taped to the bar back. You like to tell people you go to this bar. Whenever you drive past with friends, you always point it out. After your 4th shot, the crime scene cleaners arrive. The bartender puts down his TV Guide crossword puzzle his face loosening as he fills pint glasses, beer spilling onto the counter. "Hey, Frank, what you got for me?" the bartender says to his brother, wiping up the phone with a stained cloth. "Dead woman eaten by her own dogs." Frank passes around the drinks. "Her 15 dogs, says one of the cleaners who is bald. You have another shot and a beer while they describe the dead woman's home. Dog shit everywhere, and they had found dog carcasses and a dead cat in the kitchen. Although she had lived there for years, there were no photographs, barely any furniture, not even a bed. We could not figure out where she slept." Frank sucks down his beer. "I think that was the worst place we've seen," the tall, curly-haired one says. "What about that fat hoarder who killed himself? Remember the rats in that place?" The bald cleaner stands in front of them. He talks the loudest and always manages to make himself the center of attention. "Don't even mention him. It took me months to erase that from my memory." Frank shuts his eyes and leans over while the others laugh. "You are envious of the crime scene cleaners, the combination of routine and horror that is their lives. You wish you had a job with the title, something easy you could tell your mother about and she would understand, instead of explaining over and over that you do actually have an agent and work a lot, but there's never anything to show for it. I thought you wrote sitcoms," she said when you told her that a special about hair bands you worked on 2 years ago will finally be on TV. You order another shot, telling yourself not to say these things out loud. "A prostitute who's always here in the late afternoons, like you, monopolizes the jukebox, playing one Journey song after another. She starts arguing with one of the drug dealers who sells coke and crystal meth out of the toilets. As far as you can work out, one of them owes the other money. You start to have a lot of trouble keeping your head upright and decide to rest it for a minute, but the bartender slams his hand on the bar. No sleeping. Look at the kid," Frank says. "They all call you that, even though you are older than them. That's impressive, not even 6 o'clock yet." "Don't even think about puking on my bar," the bartender says. You nod at him, and then you're on the floor, Frank and the bald cleaner lifting you up. You are not sure how long you've been down, but the prostitute is still shouting, Journey still playing. "Hey, buddy, better get you home," the bald cleaner says. "You live nearby?" "Sort of," you mumble. He asks for your car keys. "I'm going to take the kid home," he says to Frank. "Follow me, would you, in my car?" You try to make your legs move, but they feel like they have a life of their own, and you're merely floating above them. Frank and the bald cleaner each have you by an arm, holding you, leading you out to the bar and down the street towards your car. They open the passenger door and deposit you inside. "Where you live, buddy?" You were slumped over, but managed to give them the address in rough directions. They slam the door shut, and you watch them confer with each other, look over at you, and laugh. You pass out, waking up at a stoplight. The radio must be tuned to the classic rock station because Led Zeppelin is playing. I fucking love this song. The ball cleaner sings along with it, his index fingers beating the air. You don't even know the name of this man who is driving your car. At each red light, you wake up, your head jerking forward when the car slows down. You keep forgetting where you are and what is happening. You look over again at this strange man. "Who are you?" you ask, unsure if you have really said this or if it's only a thought. At one point, you feel like you're going to throw up, so he pulls over, but the nausea passes and you lie back against the headrest, managing to stay awake the rest of the way. "My girlfriend lives near here," the ball cleaner says, one hand on the steering wheel, the other crooked outside the car window. You think how nice he smells, especially considering what he does all day long. You almost wish you could keep going, drive around all night with him, listening to classic rock. You feel safe with this man you don't know. He looks like he always takes care of everything. He is singing again, and you imagine him doing this while he shaves, right before climbing into bed with his girlfriend. He probably buys her flowers every week, surprises her with gifts when she's least expecting it. The kind of guy who visits his mother on a regular basis, can fix cars and leaking toilets, has a million friends he's known since kindergarten. And then you are on your street. He pulls up in front of your building. It has never looked shabbier than it does right now. You were thinking of asking him and Frank in for one more drink, not wanting the evening to end quite yet. "The wife is going to kill you, huh, kid?" he says. So you decide against the invite, thank him for the ride, and he hands back your car keys. Once inside your dark apartment, you walk around, unsure what to do next. You grab a beer, spread out on the couch with a remote, and fall asleep. The television is on when you jolt awake, still wearing your jacket, your hand wrapped around the bottle, beer spilled everywhere. Your phone is ringing somewhere. You move over to a dry part of the couch, take off your clothes, and throw them on the floor. Your desk is in the corner of the room next to a filing cabinet that houses all of your years of work. Spec scripts, sitcom ideas, pilots, game shows, a road trip flick, an unfinished horror movie, research on hair bands, surfer punk bands, a skater punk bands, Minneapolis bands, the LA scene in the late 1970s, the Manchester scene in the 1980s, the influence of drugs and rain on music in the latter part of the 20th century. Except for occasional freelance jobs, no one has seen any of it. No one has sat in a movie theater or on their couch and been entertained or moved by anything you've done. On the floor are the printer and a package of blank paper waiting for more. You get up and go to the window. Standing there in your damp boxers, you watch the cars moving between various destinations in the city, people going in and out of the 24-hour convenience store, the laundromat across the street. A glimpse of the sunset filters through palm trees, the only clue that an ocean is a few blocks away. Otherwise, you could be anywhere. If everything would stop just for a moment, you might be able to hear the Pacific, the rhythm of waves breaking apart on land. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. Our next reader for the evening is Tara Isabel Zambrano. Tara works as a semiconductor chip designer. Her work has been published in Tin House Online, the Southampton Review, Slice, Triquarterly, Yemassee, Passages North, and others. Her stories have been featured in Best Microfiction and Best Small Fictions, and have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and the Best of the Net. She served as the flash fiction editor for Newfound, and she lives in Texas with her husband and 2 grown-up kids. Please welcome Tara.
Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to this reading series, and I hope you like flash pieces because that's what I have to read, shorter. So my first piece is called Mumtaz in Burhanpur. The girl, a tour guide in Burhanpur, India, has never seen the Taj Mahal, doesn't intend to. She's 20, banana and history in her teeth. Burhanpur, she explains, is the city where Mumtaz Mahal died during her 14th childbirth. She kisses a boy from a group of tourists, the sun beating on their backs. Along the rutted dirt road, she hums a ghazal, smokes a joint with the boy. Later, she points her stone finger to the initial grave of Mumtaz before it was moved to Agra. The girl has a tattoo of a rose water fountain behind her neck. The boy licks her inked skin, his tongue drawing a map of River Tapti on whose banks the mausoleum was supposed to be. She feels as if her heart has been hoisted like a flag by the riverside, fluttering in the uncertain summer air, a kaleidoscope of rhythms. Sometimes the girl dreams of Mumtaz. The empress tells her, death makes you larger than who you are. The girl thinks she embodies the spirit of Mumtaz, an embarrassment since she doesn't know Arabic or Persian languages like the illustrious queen did. The girl's room is papered with sketches, Mumtaz practicing her hunting skills in her favorite deer park, Mumtaz relaxing in her Zanana hammam, Mumtaz wailing while delivering her last daughter, Shah Jahan coming to her grave, sobbing while reciting the Fatiha. A week later, the boy starts calling her Mumtaz, the name falling on her ears like a wish, as if her real name was never enough. They are lying on her bed when she queries if Shah Jahan had other lovers, if he was capable of such devotion despite all temptations. The boy stares at the ceiling. Then he pulls up a blanket and says, there's only one way to know. The boy declares he'll mourn for a year, just like Shah Jahan did. He'll never marry. The girl feels a fresh fear. a giddy feeling of unknowing when the boy hands her a gun, the cold barrel drawing her in like a black hole. She realizes for the first time she's afraid of being buried. The voice of Mumtaz Mahal hovers over her, loud enough for clarity. Now I'll never leave Burhanpur. 900 kilometers away, the Taj Mahal glows under a full moon. So that was my first flash. The next one is, we're waiting to hear our names. We're kissing in the back seat of his 86 Chevy, 2 country songs down, and we're still locked in each other's mouths like lightning and thunder. We are leaning against our Chevy, its front hood up. Cars, freight trucks slam by, weakening whatever honeymoon excitement still holds our dust-rimmed minds in caucus. We are waiting for the AAA, roving the radio dial, keep the baby hotline, punk rock, and weight loss pitches. We are getting into an argument. We are looking at the horizon where the light scatters and fills the stars. We are rocking our twins, a boy and a girl. We are dreaming with them, without them, swimming in a space where we are popular names, scuba diving in Hawaii and writing our love song in Bali. We are spending Christmas with my in-laws. We are buying a 30-year-old 2-bedroom home that needs a clean carpet and a washer. The choices offered and the choices made. The no man's land between them where we stand. We're standing next to the lawnmower, arguing whose turn it is. We are our hurried sex and laundry inside out. We are children's Motrin in different flavors. We are bunk beds withering into nights too short. We're still dreaming, riding bicycles, hair blown by the wind, cheeks red with sunlight. We're walking to school, driving our kids to games. We are trying a new hair color, getting attracted to other men and women. We are baking cookies and cleaning the grill. We are welcoming our kids and their fiancés. After they leave, we are sitting on the couch together in silence. We are going up and down the stairs. There are only crumpled sheets and time waiting in every room. We are yoga in the morning, lumpy fried potatoes and meat with greasy throats in the afternoons. TV's blank face in the night. We are fixing the roof, changing the wallpaper. We are growing stingy with love. We are thinking of getting a divorce. We are waiting for the doctor to tell us how bad it is. We are lying in the bed, nestled with a drip. We are asleep on the rocking chair next to the bed, an unread novel latched to our chests. We are getting used to the sound of the heart monitor, the sight of life flickering against time, the growing knots in our stomachs. Sometimes we are trying to laugh hard. We are lighting candles, thanking God for all we have, thinking we never really had a chance. We are waiting for our turn to speak at the funeral, to talk about those moments of intermittent joy. Signing the paperwork, we are lonely below the dotted line. We are moving into assisted living, our kids and grandkids waving at us, belted and secured in their SUVs, eager to leave. Wheelchaired outside, we are talking to ourselves, watching the onyx sky lit with smoking street lamps. We are lying in our graves, separated by 5 years. The dirt is full of answers. Sometimes we are whispering each other's name, and the dry flowers above us stir, and we are dreaming and waiting. We are waiting to hear our names. Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone, thank you, Tara. I just wanted to remind everyone that you can, there are purchase links in the chat window. So Susan's story collection, We Were Lucky with the Rain, and Tara's flash fiction collection, Death, Desire, and Other Destinations. Those purchase links are in the chat window. And also, if you are able to make a donation to help Dixon Place during this time, there's also a link for donations to Dixon Place in that window. Our final reader for the evening is our very own co-curator and co-founder, Lee Matthew Goldberg. Lee Matthew Goldberg is the author of the novels The Ancestor, Slow Down, The Mentor, and The Desire Card. He has been published in multiple languages and nominated for the 2018 Prix du Polar. Did I say that right?
I was French.
His first science fiction novel, Orange City, will be published next year in 2021. He's the editor-in-chief and co-founder of Fringe, dedicated to publishing fiction that is outside the box. After graduating with an MFA from the New School, his writing has also appeared in The Millions, Volume 1 Brooklyn, Lit Reactor, Monkey Bicycle, Fiction Writers Review, the Montreal Review, the Adirondack Review, New Plains Review, and many other publications. Please, everyone, welcome Lee Matthew Goldberg.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've read for Guerrilla. So I'm going to read from my new book, The Ancestor, which came out about a month ago. The book is a thriller. It's primarily set in Alaska, but there's one chapter that takes place in LA and California, and I'm going to read from that chapter today. So I don't need to set up anything, connect the dots as you will, sort of. Okay, this is The Ancestor. In the haze of an Alaska morning, all foggy, white, and contained, Callie scoops up a sleeping Eli and drags a suitcase to a called cab. There's no sun, but she will get some soon. Two tickets booked to Los Angeles, a fortune last minute, but her parents promised to pay her back. When they found out she was coming without Travis, they would have spent anything. The Nome airport with only a few travelers. She has to steel herself for the bustle, having not been to California in years. When she had Eli, her parents visited for the second time after the wedding. They bumped into each other for a few days in their small house until Callie sent them away. Occasionally she'd Skype with them, and so that's how Eli knows of their existence. Two digitized images waving from his iPad. On the plane, Eli finally wakes up, complaining about his ears. She points out of the window and he watches as they sail through a cloud. Woo, he says. The stewardess comes by and asks what he wants. Emphatically, he tells her apple juice like it's his coffee and he needs it to function. Cute, the stewardess says through her smile. Callie notices a lipstick stain on the woman's front tooth. She brushes a finger across her own, but the woman doesn't catch on. Time for a break from simple Alaska. But LA provides too much too fast. Eli plugs his ears in the lax terminals, his eyes wide enough to pop out. She hates herself for rendering him so helpless. She checks her messages and gets one from Travis. He got her note. He hopes they have a great time in California. The bank passed on the loan. Did she really need to know that? Travis, always the bearer of chagrin. She buys a cranberry muffin for her and Eli to share. Her parents, Ken and Patricia, not the type to pick her up at the airport. They'd pay for a cab, so what's the difference? She'd grown up in a giant house in Los Feliz that used to be owned by a silent movie star. The house gothic and filled with winding hallways and nooks, places a small child could create worlds. Without siblings, she spent her time fantasizing with imaginary friends. She longed to return to that house, but her parents had bought a bungalow in Venice Beach when she left for Alaska. Her mom taught yoga. Her father dabbled in investments after retiring from being an entertainment lawyer. They became the true hippies they were destined to be, who rubbed scented oils into their feet and talked of chakras. Always into crystals, but now Ken wore Zen beads, and Patricia started a raw food diet. They like to talk about detoxing, as everyone should be ashamed of their poor choices, except for marijuana, which they consumed with an outright vigilance. Callie finds them stoned and smiling on the front porch, away from the main strip of Venice Beach, and the sound of a drum circle forming. Cal, Patricia says, stretching her arms so her caftan flows like a parachute. She's wearing sunglasses as big as her face and a statement necklace that makes her look like a warrior. Callie smells patchouli as they embrace briefly. Patricia never one for giving too much love. And this one, she says, with a bony hand on her hip, My grandbaby. Come here, handsome. Eli's tuckered out but folds into her. Ken greets him with a tough handshake. Let me put him down for a nap, Callie says, after a hug with her father that's nothing more than pats on the back. In the guest room, a thin slice of space with 2 double beds and an overstuffed closet, she lies down to gather herself before she has to emerge. Why are we here, Mama? Eli asks by her side, nudging her cheek with his nose. I don't know, she tells him, but I'm going to figure it out. When Callie finally gets the confidence to greet her parents again, they've moved inside since the sun's setting. Her father looks good, as usual, trim and sockless in expensive shoes, a collared shirt opened at the neck. Her mother thinner and veinier than she remembered, poof of hair like a 70s starlet, both still wearing sunglasses indoors. So Travis didn't want to come? Patricia asks. The tone is sweet, but the underlying implication palpable. Mom, Patricia's foaming at the mouth, almost whispering the word divorce with delight. We needed a break from Alaska. Well, Patricia says, turning her nose, I don't know how you live in a dead end like that. Look at your skin. Callie wants to say, look at your skin. You two are leathery like lizards. But she glances at her own hands that are ivory-colored and dry AF. Lotion, darling, Patricia says, whipping out a bottle from her caftan like a magician. She squirts some into Callie's palms. Rub it in good. Bug, Ken says, you could tell us what's really going on. Everything's fine, Callie says, raising her voice. Her parents eye each other. Everything's wonderful. God, you haven't seen Eli since he was born. Is it so crazy I wanted to come? They both wait a beat and give a nod. Sweetness, don't stay in Alaska to spite us, Patricia says. And Callie almost wants to leave right then and there. She grinds her teeth. Can you watch Eli? I want to go for a walk. I want to be by myself. Of course, Ken says, rotating the prayer beads on his wrist. She takes in the home decor, which she's never seen beyond being a background in a Skype call. They have so much clutter, paintings competing for space, coffee table books they'll never read, tchotchkes from their travels, not because they loved the pieces when they were there, but so they could say to their friends, yes, we got that in Marrakesh, I believe, and then tell a long-winded story full of asides and misdirects until they arrive at procuring some stupid little statue on their mantle of an elephant with a fez hat. Here, her mother says, after Callie already stood, she slips a gummy bear into her hand. The sunset will be beautifully enhanced. Eli will be up in 2 hours. Take longer, Patricia says, pushing her out of the door. And now Callie loves them for noticing her stress and giving her a tart gummy that she gobbles, immediately feeling high once she swallows, even though she knows that's impossible. She takes long strides to the beach, wandering away from the dozens of vendors hawking their art, or tarot cards, or perfumes, and finds herself by the drum circle she spied from her parents' balcony. About 50 kids 10 years younger than her, still firmly kids without spouses or children or worries, stoned under the pink and purple setting sun, drum beats accelerating, all of them dancing, united. She tells herself the gummy has kicked in and flings her arms to the sky. It's warm enough and she can't recall the last time she's been outside in short sleeves. 2 teenage boys dance around her, their moves polished, their rhythm divine, and she dances like she's auditioning for a spot in a troupe, smiling at her ability to still hang. The song continues because a drum circle never ends, its eternal beat glistening, wild thumps over and over until finally the sun sets and the California night comes in cool and sweet, the air smelling of salt and pretty sweat. She waves goodbye at the 2 teenagers, takes off her shoes, and runs down to the tide that licks her toes, and after a good cry, scoops some salt water onto her face and returns to the girl she left here years ago. Callie's baked and being stoned alone proves no fun, so she dials an old friend of hers, Madison, blonde and tan and always up for getting wasted. Cal, Madison chirps before Callie has a chance to say hi. No way, OMG. Way, I'm in LA. Alaska melted, Madison asks, and then laughs. Yeah, I guess. I'm having a party right now in the hills. I'll text you the address. Okay. Hop in an Uber. Callie doesn't have that app on her phone, but she's too embarrassed to say it. I'll come over right now. She beams, all exclamation points. Since she's on the beach, there are plenty of cabs, so she gets in one and tells them Madison's address. On the way, she calls her parents, who vaguely remember Madison because they never paid attention to her friends, but they tell her it's fine to stay out as late as she wants. The cab climbs up Havenhurst Drive to a new construction in Wayho with a boutique collection of townhouses, modern white against the glass with views of the city and the sky. The party is in full force on the deck, filled with outdoor couches and a DJ with oversized headphones. Callie pictures Laner where neighbors gather around a television with canned beers that aren't meant to be ironic. Talk of fishing, guns, and weather. Here house music plays. Girls wear bikinis covered in glitter, guys with their pecs and abs out, everyone having just come from trainers. She locks her arms around her own stomach, abs a thing of her past. Callie? Squeal from a pig's tail being pulled, and there's Madison. Golden tan, blonde hair with extensions down to her ass, righteous bod and angel wings protruding from her back. She's a tattoo of a fairy on her shoulder, her lipstick an unnatural pink. What a blast! Hey, Mad, Callie says, and the two hug. Madison steps back to get a good look. What are you wearing? Callie peers down, a t-shirt she got in an outlet mall, jeans that didn't taper enough, a lavender crystal hanging from her neck. She looks like an uncool mom. I just got off the plane, Callie says. Let's get you a cocktail. Callie instantly feels better with the cold drink glued to her hand. Something red, cloyingly sweet, but also with a heavy pour of good vodka, not the cheap shit that Travis picks up at the Packy. Elena, Madison yells, calling a girl over who has bug eyes from being so thin. She's all protruding bones. I didn't even recognize you, Callie says, finally placing the face. She had roomed with Madison and Elena along with one other girl for a year after moving out of her parents. Most of them waitress while waiting to try to score auditions, making enough for booze and tacos, hooking up with whatever guys meandered in their direction. Elena had been much larger then, and sometimes Callie and Madison would speak of how bad they felt for the girl to be in their hot posse. You look great. I had my stomach stapled, Elena says. Ouch. What are you doing here? Elena asks, like she's accusing Callie of some terrible act. Visiting my folks, they're with my son. You have a son? Elena asks, and she and Madison squeal, but not from excitement. A human being is never coming out of this, Madison says, indicating her vagina. Are you married? Elena asks. At first, Callie's offended. How can none of them know this? Hadn't she been the hot topic amongst their circle, the girl who fled to Alaska? To them, it was far from exciting news. Callie shows her wedding ring, a small band with a diamond like a pinhead. The girls plaster on smiles, afraid of seeming cruel. What's he like? Madison asks. He's a fisherman? Well, he's opening up a fish shack. He hunts? She tries to think of whatever else to say, but finds herself stumped. You never like to color inside the lines, Madison says, as if that explains Callie's entire existence. Come. She hooks a finger with Callie's and directs her over to a table where a pyramid of Coke sits on a glass tray. My boyfriend is a producer. Callie shuts off while Madison boasts of her boyfriend who produces some reality TV show that Callie never heard of and is writing some spec script with some actor she didn't know who has a PJ, which she later realizes means a private jet, and they fly to Vegas and Aspen all the time and get the best Coke in the land. She chooses to listen to the last part and replies with a good long sniff. Amazing, right? Madison asks and winks. Her eye gets stuck due to her gummy, oversized eyelashes, and she has to use her manicured nails to pry it apart. Ooh, this is Julian. Callie gets introduced to a skinny guy with a weird mustache and saggy pants that look like he took a dump in them, who's a songwriter. He starts singing in an embarrassing falsetto. Julian is so talented, Madison beams. Where's your boyfriend? Callie asks. Dubai, I think. Yeah, Dubai, securing financing. Girl, I'm opening up an athletic wear company. In Dubai, Callie's having a hard time following. People speak so fast here, and yeah, she'd ingested a line of Coke, and probably everyone here snorted more. But it's like no one could take a breath before they start talking more. You should follow me on IG, Julian says. What? I said you should follow me. I need a bite of food, Callie says, and pushes past them into the kitchen, where two models discuss the calories they consumed that day and which one cheated more. Callie finds a cooked chicken in the fridge, rips off a drumstick, and gnaws. Oh, fuck, that's good. She tosses the bone in the sink and rips off the other drumstick. You should take a napkin, one of the models says. You're dying of jealousy, Callie replies, munching in the girl's face. When she gets back to the party, she spies Elena, who walks in the other direction, clearly fleeing. She thinks of how Travis would view these people, moochers and show-offs. He'd go off on them, and this makes her laugh because he's right. Madison slides her palm up the back of Callie's shirt. Em and Jesleen just told me you ate an entire chicken in front of them like a savage. What gives? Callie belches in response. Thanks, this was great. She kisses Madison on both cheeks, leaving chicken grease. Bye, doll. She hugs Madison, and the half-eating chicken bone gets lost in Madison's mane of hair. Since Madison doesn't notice, Callie decides to leave it. You're going already? Callie wipes a solitary tear. I'm an alien here. Madison shakes her head. You're just out of practice. For what? Mingling, angling, networking? There is opportunity on this deck. Callie wipes the sweat from her forehead. It's so fucking hot. Yeah, it's summer in LA. I miss the cold. You've been here 2 seconds. I just want to be with my husband on the couch. Then why did you come? Because I'm a fool. All right, bye, girl. Enjoy your moose land. I will, Madison. I fucking will. Enjoy your fantasy. Madison drops her mouth wide open. Bitch, I was on a PJ yesterday drinking Cristal. And on your deathbed, if that image makes you happy, then by all means give over your soul. You were always so what? So unsettled, Callie. Well, you have a chicken bone in your hair. And in the middle of the night, when she gets back, her parents asleep, Eli out cold, she has a glass of wine on the deck observing the still Pacific. How it gives her the silence she's longed for since she got here. Its lapping waves, its quiet conversation, telling her to get in her spaceship and fly back to the only home she's ever known. Thanks.
Thank you. The purchase link for Lee's new novel, The Ancestor, is also in the chat window. I encourage you all to purchase these authors' books, and also, again, if you're able to support Dixon Place, there's the donation link in the chat window. I'm going to open it up to questions. If anyone in attendance has questions for either of any of our authors this evening. We're a small group, so anyone could just unmute themselves and chime in.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. We don't bite. I'll start off. This is for all three of the readers. So with everything that's going on in the world, all of the craziness, the pandemic, the Trump administration, last night's debate, all of the things that keep you up at night, how are you making time to make art, to be creative, to write, to, all of that? Like how are you filtering out all the horrible things that are happening and carving out space in your life for doing what you do?
Who wants to go first?
Go for it.
Okay. So I try to follow a routine from morning itself with exercise and, with some meditation and working. I work full time, so I'm able to work from home, fortunately. And then because of this book promotion stuff going on, I force myself to write because then I forget about it. I submit stories, I get rejected a lot, as all of you know, that happens to us. And it keeps me grounded, it keeps me focused, on just that day. I tend to keep myself so busy that I don't think much beyond the day. Because if anything, this pandemic has taught us is to be still, at least for some time, and just observe what's happening around you and then participate in it, because you don't know how long it's going to last. So that's what is working so far for me. I don't know if it will continue, but that's how I deal with it. And that's my inspiration to write every day, or at least every other day, or something like that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, a routine has always served me really well. I tend to stick to sort of a write in the afternoon. It always is best for me. I've taken a break for the last month, really just working on publicity stuff, which I really never do. Like I always pretty much just write and I'll finish something and start something new. So this is kind of new for me to kind of just take some time off, and I'm also not at home right now, so it's a little hard to kind of focus in general. But yeah, I'm looking forward to starting a new project, and I think the great thing, especially about writing fiction is a break from reality in a lot of ways. So I know at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was working on something, it was an escape for myself and very therapeutic in that way, where I'm able to just shut my mind off for the hours that I'm working on something. So I hope that comes back and it wasn't just a one-time thing.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what they both said, a routine is always key, and trying to shut out everything else in your life, I think for me has always been a struggle, not just now. I mean, obviously it's really, really heightened. But yeah, I think somehow trying to come up with a routine and trying to just stay focused on the task at hand, and juggling, all the other work. I don't know, I guess like that's something I always struggle with, I guess, is just to not think about, everything else. And in some ways I feel like, I don't have any desire to write fiction about the pandemic. But I do think all the stuff that's happening right now, and even in the past few years with Trump and Me Too and all that stuff, I feel like it's really layered. It'll be layered into, even though I'm not like, if you don't even directly address it, it's layered into the work.
Right.
I mean, even if you look at like what the Renaissance came out of, and I think the great art will, a lot of times the worst of times makes the greatest art, because when things are amazing, you're kind of distracted and you're just having so much fun and doing such amazing things. And it's really the times when things are tough that, the art really comes from it. So I don't think we're going to see that many pandemic works, just because people are like, I think if you were trying to sell that right now to an editorial house, they're not even going to look at it. Nonfiction, yes. Fiction, no. But who knows a couple of years from now if this moment is something that, will be like in fiction. I really don't think people are going to want to return to it in a lot of ways that you don't, even something like 9/11, you don't see that much fiction devoted to it. When you live through something like this, it's kind of like, we all went through it, and who wants to go through it again?
Right.
Do we have any questions from the participants, the audience? Quiet bunch tonight.
I have a question.
Sure.
Has anybody been reading a lot now, and are people reading anything good? Do you have any good recommendations for something that has really kind of captured you? And has reading been some type of an escape?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really amazing, like every year, but it feels like there's so many incredible books out right now. I'm reading Britt Bennett's newest book called The Vanishing Half, which is amazing. And I read, I finished recently Natasha Trethewey's Memorial Drive. Natasha Trethewey was the U.S. Poet Laureate, but she wrote this is a memoir, which I didn't know anything actually really about her personal life, which was that her mother was killed by her stepfather, and it's her memoir about that, and it's really, really incredible. She's a beautiful writer anyway, and I've heard her speak about it, and it's really just, I don't know, I feel like I have a really new understanding about domestic violence and trauma, and it's so good. But there are so many incredible books out right now, I must say. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like I had a hard time reading at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
couldn't, like, movies were very easy to kind of, you know, ingest, but books were not. And then I just feel like I've been reading so much, like it's, I can't even remember. It's like just one book after another after another. But recently I've been at the beach for the last couple of weeks, so I've been reading a lot of kind of just like trashy thrillers. But they're giving me a lot of pleasure. So
Yeah.
a lot of them are really good, and now I don't want to see which ones they are because they trashy. But they're all really excellent, and you know, I love when there's like a million twists and things like that. So nothing too serious right now is sort of my cup of tea.
Right. Yeah, I just read a lot online because I am involved in the Twitter community. So, you know, I have a lot of writers who I, you know, regularly exchange posts with. And so they come up with something, and most of them are flash writers. It's very quick read, and it's, you know, with my full-time job, it's easier to just do that, keep up to speed, you know, what's people writing about. And then there's a lot of good stuff too. I had this book, I don't know, Black Light by Kimberly King Parsons. It's a book of short stories. It's very well done, I think. So that's what I have read. Other than that, it's just, you know, working on what I'm supposed to do, and that just keeps me out of trouble. So
It's always good to stay out of trouble.
I have a question for you guys. When you start writing something new, do you feel like you know where it's going, or is it sort of a process of discovery?
So I always outline now. It makes the writing time just so much less, I find.
Right.
But then I allow, you know, some movement. So like a lot of times, like halfway through the outline, it starts going in a little bit of a different direction. And I never, if like I had an ending, but then that ending is not working,
Yeah.
or make sure I stick to it. I think the author Wally Lamb, he said it really well, where he was taking a shower one day and it was like a voice spoke to him and it was like, this character needs to die. And it's like, no, but I love that character. And the voice just kept like telling him. And even though he didn't plan on it, he was like, this character needs to die. And I think that's, you know, to lock yourself in is really tough. But to not have any outline now, I find it quite hard to just like stare at a blank page. At least then you know like the chapter you're working on, you know, and the characters have already formed in some way.
So I haven't written much short stories or novel. I don't know if I have that in me, but with Flash, I just start with an image or something like a phrase that comes to me, and then I just write. And a lot of times I can see where it's going. And so I have an ending in my mind, but I almost never end up there.
Yeah.
Because of the limited usage of words forces me to make it, in order to make it more compelling and not trick the reader, you know, I mean, it's just, you have to make it like it's a regular story. Just put a few strokes in there so that you can finish a sketch, right? So that they can look at it and say, okay, I recognize what it is. But then there's also a little bit of a surprise or a twist at the end that needs to start building from the start, so that if they come back and read the story, they don't feel cheated, right? So that's the technique that I have sort of gone back and forth on as a part of flash writing. And so I'm a very logical and rational person in my job because that's what I do. I'm an engineer. But when it comes to writing, I tend to shut that down when I'm just putting the skeleton in, because, and then I have to make it plausible. I have to make it cause and effect. So that's when my, you know, scientific mind comes into play, which will say, oh, why are you doing this? You know, does it make any sense? And so, you know, as long as I'm able to meld the two and create a good story, I consider myself successful.
Can ask a question?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. May I?
Yes.
Going back to something you guys were talking about earlier, how the pandemic is, you don't want to write about the pandemic. I know that, I'm sorry, I was reading recently, someone said, 1984 was really about 1948. That is it, when you look at your writings from times like September 11th, do you see in them now things that perhaps you didn't see then? Were you writing about September 11th? Do you think it's possible you're writing about the pandemic now without even thinking about it?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think so. I mean, there's no way. I definitely think it's, like I was saying earlier, I think it's layered in. And I think that's really interesting what you're saying about September 11th, because I've written nonfiction about, like, I've written like personal writing about September 11th, but that experience has, definitely altered everything, right? So like being in New York City on September 11th, I think definitely influenced my fiction so much. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think what we're going through, and just, we're also like in the middle of this story too. That's the other thing. Like we're in the middle of the pandemic and Trump and all that stuff. And like, we're like living it in real time. So it's kind of hard to like write about it, like to think I'm going to write about the pandemic, but because we don't know the outcome yet. But I think that it'll definitely influence us, even if we don't choose it as like a subject.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's no way that it won't subconsciously just seep into the work, even if it's not about the pandemic. It's going to be about the pandemic, because we're all going through it in different ways, but we're all going through it together. So I'm sure the work that comes out of this, that you'll see some type of connection in terms of emotion and mood and tone, that connects to all this, and especially related to Trump too in these last 4 years. The anger and like the fear and all that. There's no way it can't seep into your work.
And you write science fiction a lot, right? So
yeah, I mostly thrillers, but I moving in like a sci-fi.
Right.
So yeah, I mean the sci-fi book I've been working on since I was a kid. So that wasn't really influenced by this time. But a new project I'm about to start, I will definitely be influenced by this in some ways. Just like the darkness aspect of it.
Yeah.
But, and then on the flip side, I think in some ways other people may be writing the opposite, where they want to escape in some ways and they want to write like a happy, positive piece as a way of just kind of, separating themselves from what's going on. So we might see that, as well. Hopefully we'll just, in some ways, this will be in the past. Like that's all, especially Trump. Like,
right, hopefully. But I feel like it's showing us this sort of, there's so many examples of extremes of humanity, like evil and, I mean, just even with like some of the stuff what happened with immigration, like the separation of families and the fact that, that human beings were doing that. I just feel like it's expanded your, like, even if you don't choose to write exactly about that, to think about, a border patrol agent doing that and,
Oh, absolutely. And I believe a lot of amazing fiction and voices that maybe did not have a voice before are also coming out of these last 4 years. And we're seeing stories that we haven't seen, and they're hungry for those stories. They don't want just the same, like, story about a white person. Like that's not what's even like being bought and sold right now. So, I don't know. I always looked at some type of positive has to come out of some type of negative. And
right. Because I remember I used to have initially when I started submitting, I grew up in India, and so I had stories that were culturally quite different, just as you would expect, because I had seen a different part of the world growing up, where I grew up with different religions, different communities, I went to a Catholic school. I studied with a lot of my Muslim friends, Sikh friends. But when I came here and I started in the South, it was just completely different. I could see the hesitation in the journals trying to publish stuff where I came from, because either they were not familiar with it, they did not know about it, or they were like afraid of what is it, right? How is this happening in some other part of the world? But now I can see, because of, these unfortunate events, in past decade or even more so, people here have been exposed to a lot of, the rest of the world, right? And so can see and appreciate, and distinguish between peoples from different parts of the world. Earlier, everybody was from outside America and us, right? And now it's like, okay, so you come from this part of the world. So there is that respect and recognition that's happening for people of color and, other sections of the society. So that's a good side that, that came out of all this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I do write about pandemic. I just don't publish it because it's just a venting mechanism to actually get to the writing that I want to write.
I totally agreed. I do the same.
Thank you, Keith, for that question. I think we're going to end the evening. I just wanted to say thank you again to our 3 authors who shared their work with us. We're back on Wednesday, October 28th, and we'd love to have you there. We have Morgan Jerkins. She's the author of This Will Be My Undoing, Living at the Intersection of Black, Female, and Feminist in White America, and her newest book that just came out last month, I think, called Wandering in Strange Lands, A Daughter of the Great Migration Reclaims Her Roots. We also have Mark Barr. His debut novel, Watershed, came out late last year. And we have Melissa Falaveno. Her debut essay collection, Tomboyland, just came out last month. So that's October 28th. Look out for us on social media for information about that series. About that event. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. And Dixon Place is looking for new ways to help them keep the fires burning. And in October, they're running a month-long fundraising campaign called Raising Cain. And we hope that you'll visit dixonplace.org and look at all of their virtual events and donate if you can to help the theater stay open in these times. And thank you very much, and have a good evening, all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.